Crime is a Disease, Meet the Cure. Cobra on 4K HDR UHD from Arrow Video. This may not be a good movie. I love this movie. This is a film I saw with my late father when it came out back in '86, and we went in because he loved Stallone movies, he loved action movies, and I was learning about action movies through him. I was watching the Charles Bronson movies and the Chuck Norris movies and the Clint Eastwood movies and the Stallone movies with him on TV and on HBO. And when a new one would come out, we would go. And this was a fond memory of mine, is us going to see Cobra. And by the end of the movie, when he is just mowing down tons of people, and then the credits roll with the voice of America's sons, like he has killed so many people, and he has killed the bad guy in this film in the most gruesome way. Up to that point, I had seen a bad guy die on film. And this upbeat, rah-rah, pro-America song starts playing, and my father and I get up out of the theater, and I clearly remember we're walking out of the theater laughing. We're just laughing at, like, that was just, he killed so many people in that movie. And then we went next door to Papa Gino's and had a slice. Anyway, I'm predisposed to like this film, and I saw this at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater where I work a couple years ago on film, and it was a super fun movie, and I've owned it on DVD, and I own the previous Warner Blu-ray, and I'm very thrilled to now have this Arrow 4K collection. Let me tell you what it is. Do you know what the movie's about? Stallone is Marion Cobretti, a.k.a. I love that. There's at one point in the beginning of the film where there's a bad guy, a crazed, glassy-eyed bad guy is holding hostages and shooting people up in a grocery store in L.A. or somewhere near L.A., and one of the cops says, "Call in the Cobra." They call him the Cobra. He is part of the zombie squad, which they, in some very ham-fisted dialogue, describe as the jobs nobody else wants. The weirdest, most gruesome cases, they give that to the zombie squad. So the zombie squad seemingly consists of Stallone and Reni Santoni, and that seems to be the only guys in the zombie squad. And Santoni, as a friend of mine had pointed out. So this film it's directed by George Cosmatos, although throughout the credits, everybody says that Stallone really directed it and Cosmatos was there to do, second unit or lesser things or something like that. Sylvester Stallone, in case you didn't know what I was talking about, Brigitte Nielsen, Brian Thompson, Pig, Andrew Robinson. That is nothing against Brian Thompson. That is the line that is forever burned into my brain when I think of Brian Thompson. He seems to be a very nice guy. Andrew Robinson, who was the villain in Dirty Harry, which is funny to watch him playing a very uptight cop in this film. Reni Santoni, also from Dirty Harry, which a friend of mine pointed out. If you did an Andy Robinson double feature and you ran Dirty Harry and Cobra, that's actually pretty smart. You see him on both sides of the law. And Reni Santoni was Dirty Harry's partner, so it's kind of funny to see that. So this film is about Cobra is this badass, clad in black, pistol-packing, boot-wearing, muscle car-driving cop who he is the strong arm of the law, and he is called in when nobody else can take care of business. And the business to be taken care of in this film is this bizarre cult of everyday people who have banded together to go into abandoned swimming pools and industrial spaces and clang axes together and talk about the new world order or the new order that's coming, and they kill the weak so the strong can survive. And they basically just kill people and collect souls. And it's this weird cult made up of everyday people who have infiltrated all levels of society. And Cobra has to find this out, protect. This is a funny thing too. He has to protect Brigitte Nielsen, who's a fashion model who has witnessed these people right after they murdered somebody. Now they're after her to eliminate the witness. This is based on the novel Fair Game, which is also the basis for the I think it was Billy Baldwin, the Billy Baldwin Cindy Crawford film of the same name. So this film has literary roots. And also the story of the character of Cobra. Originally, Stallone was going to star in Beverly Hills Cop, and he wanted to rewrite the script, and he rewrote it from Axel Foley to Marion Cobretti, and a lot of elements, what he wanted to do in Beverly Hills Cop wound up going into Cobra. So a lot of stories behind the scenes on this film. That's the story. It's incredibly violent. It's got some very memorable lines. It's got some very memorable moments, cutting pizza with scissors. And I'll give you the specs on the disc, and the disc is really loaded. It's pretty cool. So you have two versions of the film on here. You have the theatrical cut, which runs 87 minutes, and is presented looking the best it's ever looked, widescreen and all that. And you have the TV version, which is presented 4:3, which is, I always do this to indicate in this wider frame that it's a square, but it looks like I'm worshiping the Dark Lord. So the TV version is 4:3 and it runs 94 minutes, so it's 7 minutes longer. And I did watch both, and it is interesting to watch the TV version because it has a lot of little bits and pieces that add, it slows the film down a little bit, but you get to see like where the Brian Thompson character works. You get to see more of this whole idea that these cult members are in various aspects of society and what they do for their day jobs. I mean, it's like a montage, but there's a little bit more here, and there's a little bit more dialogue with people. It does flesh the movie out a little bit more, so it is cool to see, and that is presented on there. They sort of apologize via a disclaimer about what it's going to look like, but I thought it looked like if you had flipped on the TV and watched it in '88 or whenever it was on TV, it didn't look any worse than that. It's not like some TV versions that you get, like on the 2-minute warning Blu-ray, where the TV version clearly looks like somebody recorded it on the worst speed from TNT years later, and then that got uploaded to YouTube, and then that's what's on the Blu-ray. This looks good. This is from like whatever the master tape was for TV. The main film is presented multiple audio formats. You have English 5.1, English 4.0, English 2.0, optional English SDH subtitles. This was a Canon-produced film. This was a Warner Brothers release, but it was produced by Golan and Globus. That's always interesting to me because when I think of Canon films, I think of the logo and Canon films. But there were a few that they produced that were released, with Stallone actually, that were released by a bigger studio, and they were just, their production title was basically on there. One of the things, I'm glancing at my notes here, one of the things I love in that opening with the added resolution of 4K and a nice big TV is that you can ogle all of the 1985 or 1986 food packaging, and I'm a sucker for old signage and packaging and stuff like that when he is in the grocery store. So he hides at one point when Cobra is inside the grocery store and the bad guy is in there holding people hostage, the basically set piece that opens the film. He hides next to this Pepsi display, which my local grocery store, PNC in Claremont, New Hampshire, back in the 80s had this, and I always remember looking at it and thinking it was so cool. It looked like a large Pepsi can that was perpetually pouring into a cup, and it was just this sort of twisted piece of brownish plastic, but it gave the effect at a distance of something pouring forever. Anyway, it's cool to see that again, and forevermore, it's not just living in my memory, it's living in Cobra. This is a film that it's a genre that I don't think I've ever heard anybody else talk about or name. I call it like crime horror or urban horror. Dirty Harry is the same thing, not coincidentally or coincidentally. It's films that are crime thrillers or action movies, but they hit the same beats and they push the same buttons that a horror movie would. And in this film, you've got a killer who's basically a serial killer, and it's super creepy and he's super grim. And this film has that horror movie tone. And again, Dirty Harry does the same thing. And it's like this it portrays the city as like this urban nightmare where like lurking in every shadow is somebody who's going to get you. And that was a lot of the paranoia of the time. This film certainly plays into that, where certain people felt that, crime was just running wild in all of our urban areas of America. And, the law was too lenient and they were releasing bad guys again. And it's very explicitly said a few times in this film is, we lock them up and the judges release them, and it's going to take a hot-handed super cop and vigilantes to really, take care of, clean up the streets and cure that disease, which is crime. It shows cities as just filled with like the homeless and ethnics and sex workers and muggers, and it really plays on the fears and phobias and prejudices of the time. It's very 80s in that. And it's other examples of that urban crime horror, whatever you want to call it. Dirty Harry, as I said, Death Wish, Cruising very much plays like a horror movie. And it's just, it hits those buttons, and it's a lot more than just a cop movie, It is set at Christmas time, which for me as a kid, and still to a degree, is very weird to see a Christmas where there's just no snow. It just looks like any kind of nice, what our East Coast and a lot of the country's brain registers as summer day. It's a nice summer day on Ventura Beach. And well, why is there a Christmas tree there? Why is everybody listening to Rudolph the Red-Nosed? This is weird. Why am I hearing sleigh bells in the desert? It's just, It's just one of those things. The special features, that's what you're here to hear me talk about. You get a commentary by critics Kim Newman and Nick D. Semlin. That is new. You get a commentary by critics Josh Nelson and Mike Pedler. That is new. You get an archival 2001 commentary that goes back to the DVD with George Pan Cosmatos. You get White Line Nightmares, a visual essay by Martin Contiero on Cobra and the Maverick cop genre. That's new. That's 13 minutes. Dark Glasses, Violence and Robots. This is another new extra visual essay by critic Abby Bender on Cobra and the maximalist cinema of the 80s. Slashing the Night Away, interview with composer Sylvester LeVar about his score for Cobra. That is a new extra, and I was impressed to learn that he was part of the group The Silvers, which I played on his name, which I had no idea. That's 17 minutes. Stalking and Slashing, the archive Shout Factory extra with actor Brian Thompson, and he's very candid in this. 26 minutes. He talks about Stallone kind of being a dong to him a little bit. He talks about Cosmatos being very gruff and not a very good director. Like, it's one of the reasons they have the legal disclaimers at the beginning of these things. But it was just interesting to hear a very frank discussion of one man's experience of working on the film. Meet the Disease, interview with actor Marco Rodriguez, who plays the supermarket psycho at the beginning. He was in a ton of stuff around this time. That's from the Shout Factory release. That's 24 minutes. Feel the Heat, interview with actor Andrew Robinson, also from the Shout Factory release. That's 14 minutes. Double Crossed, interview with actress Lee Garlington. She played the female cop in the film from the Shout Factory release. That's 9 minutes. Cool to hear her talk because she's somebody you would recognize, but never really has gotten much accolades or spotlight shown upon her. A work of art, interview with actor Art LaFleur, who's the cop who says, "Get the Cobra." You would recognize him. Art LaFleur, you probably don't know the name, but you've seen him in a million things from this era. Bit parts, a lot of commercial work. Always cool to see him. That's also from the Shout Factory release. That's 8 minutes. The Making of Cobra, original 1986 promotional featurette. It's 4:3 video, shot on video with a ton of behind the scenes and on-set interviews. That's 8 minutes and very cool. I always find anything that's shot on video feels more immediate. It feels more real. So if you can see on-set footage behind the scenes of something that you've only experienced on film, that's the closest you're going to get to being there. There's a teaser trailer that's 1.5 minutes, which is a lot of fun. The theatrical trailer that's 2 minutes, and the image gallery, which is 158 images from the making of the film. I don't get a copy with packaging, but I'm sure the packaging is glorious. They tend to have really nice covers and booklets, and sometimes they'll tuck in other things there. Check the Amazon link for that. But I really enjoy Cobra. This is the definitive edition of Cobra, unless somebody has the guts and insanity to try to do this one better. Available now on 4K UHD HDR Blu-ray from Arrow Video. It's The Cure.